They stole my trip, called me selfish. My revenge was changing the locks and reclaiming my life. That chill in the hallway, the sight of those pristine, unfamiliar suitcases. It wasn't the first sting of their disregard, not by a long shot. My mind, a reluctant historian, unspooled a reel of countless moments, each a testament to the glaring disparity in my family's universe. My sister Serafina was born, shimmering, wrapped in my parents' adoration. I was her shadow, a fact they etched into my soul with every dismissive glance, every casually overlooked achievement. But one man saw the fire in my quiet, a gentle giant named Grandpa Alistair. I remember when Serafina won her regional debate competition. 10th grade. Mother Eleanor baked a 3-layer cake, a monument to victory, and even had t-shirts printed Serafina Future Senator. The house buzzed with her brilliance. A few months later, I landed the lead in our middle school play. A smaller stage, yes, but my heart had soared. Mother clapped politely from the audience, then slipped out halfway through. A Serafina emergency, she'd whispered to father later. Something about a term paper crisis. There were always more urgent things when it came to Serafina. 5 years older, 5 inches taller, and in my parents' eyes, 5 times more destined for greatness. She was the born leader. I was the quiet one, the afterthought. It became a silent agreement, she spoke up. I stayed out of the way. Did it hurt terribly? But you learned to swallow it. Grandpa Alistair's craftsman home in Willow Creek, Montana was my only refuge. 2 streets down from the suffocating perfection of our house, his place smelled of old books, rich pipe tobacco, and an unwavering, unconditional acceptance that I breathed in like vital air. The scent of history of a life lived fully. He never made a show of my visits. He'd just scoot over on the worn couch the springs groaning a welcome and hand me the remote. Roman Holiday or Casablanca Ilara. His quiet wisdom was a balm. You don't need their spotlight. Ilara, he told me once, his gaze steady as we watched the Montana sky shift from bruised purple to inky black from his back deck. People think it's where greatness lives, but sometimes the best lights shine from within, especially when the time is right. He never needed to say Serafina's name. We both knew. He taught me to drive in his old pickup, its gears as stubborn as my teenage doubts. When I was rejected from the student council, a tiny, insignificant loss that felt monumental then, he didn't offer platitudes. Instead, he bought me a beautiful set of oil paints and a stretched canvas. Make your own picture, kiddo, he'd rumbled, a smile in his voice. A much more interesting one, I reckon. During one particularly bleak visit when the weight of my parents' indifference felt heavier than usual, he pressed something cool and metallic into my palm. It was an old, ornate brass compass, its surface etched with swirling patterns. This belonged to your great-grandmother, he said, his eyes twinkling with a knowing light. A woman who charted her own course against all winds. It will always show you your true north, Alara, even when others try to steer you off course. I'd often trace its cool rim, puzzled by its deeper meaning, but undeniably comforted by its tangible presence, its silent promise of direction. A lifeline, maybe. That comfort was a world away from the performative enthusiasm that filled our kitchen whenever Serafina called from her prestigious East Coast college. Mother Eleanor and Father Richard would huddle around the speakerphone, their faces alight, as she recounted tales of business seminars and case competitions. She's really got that Carter Drive, father would boom, as if Serafina had single-handedly inherited all the ambition in the family. I'd slide my homework aside, making room for their adulation, feeling more invisible with every passing word. An afterthought. Yes, that's what I was. And as Serafina's star continued its dazzling ascent, fueled by their unwavering belief, the weight of that old brass compass in my pocket felt heavier. Its needle spinning, searching for a north that seemed ever more distant from the life they envisioned for their family. Years did that strange dance they do when you're young, slipping by in a blur of quiet striving, the old brass compass a silent confidant clutched in my pocket during lonely moments. I made it to Northwood University on a partial scholarship, a feat I was immensely proud of, yet it barely registered on the family Richter scale. Oh, that's nice, dear Mother Eleanor had said, vaguely when I told her eyes already distant. Did I tell you Serafina is consulting for a tech startup? So innovative. Of course, always Serafina. Then, during the bleak winter of my freshman year, a phone call shattered the fragile peace I'd begun to build. The flat, detached voice on the other end announcing Grandpa Alistair's peaceful passing didn't just break my morning, it unknowingly armed me with a sanctuary, and though I couldn't know it, then a secret weapon. His death left a hole in the world, a gaping void where his quiet strength and unwavering belief in me used to be. The funeral was a sterile affair, all hushed tones and black fabric. Serafina, draped in expensive looking black, produced perfectly timed tears that never smudged her mascara. Marcus, her smirking fiance, hovered nearby, a vulture in a tailored suit. My own sorrow was a profound, silent ache too deep for performative grief. How could they not feel the earth tilt? A week later, we found ourselves in a stuffy lawyer's office that smelled of old paper and furniture polish. The air crackled with a tension that was almost palpable. I sat in a corner, feeling like an intruder braced for the inevitable. Mother Eleanor received $50,000. A flicker of something, satisfaction, relief, crossed her face as she squeezed Father's hand. Serafina naturally was next, $300,000. Her face lit up like a perverse Christmas tree. Baby, she whispered to Marcus loud enough for all to hear. We can finally expand the cafe. Maybe even get a real office this time. She shot me a triumphant, pitying glance. I stared straight ahead, my expression carefully neutral. I expected nothing. Absolutely nothing. And to my granddaughter, Alara Vance. The lawyer continued, his voice a monotone drone who always saw the magic in the mundane and whose quiet heart understood the language of the wind in the pines. I leave my home in Willow Creek, Montana, and all its contents. Silence. Then a sharp, derisive burst of laughter from Serafina. Oh my God. Alara, she shrieked, her voice dripping with amusement. You got the old dump in Willow Creek. That's hilarious, Marcus snickered beside her. Hey, maybe you can sell it for parts before it collapses. Get a decent car out of it. Mother Eleanor offered a half-hearted Serafina dear, but her eyes too held a glint of something that looked suspiciously like amusement. Family greed, I suppose, has many faces. A strange cocktail of emotions churned within me, the fresh wave of grief for Grandpa Alistair, a surprising, fierce surge of protectiveness for this unexpected inheritance, and a bewildered sort of shock. His house. My house. Just as we were about to leave, the lawyer cleared his throat again. Ah, Miss Vance, there's one more item for you. He slid a small, antique, intricately carved wooden box across the polished table. A yellowed, brittle note was tied to its clasp with a piece of old twine. Grandpa Alistair's familiar, spidery handwriting addressed me. My dearest Alara, open this only when you feel the path is completely obscured or wonderfully clear. The box felt strangely heavy in my hands, almost humming with untold stories, with secrets I couldn't yet fathom. What on earth? I left that office with the keys to a house I barely remembered, and a mysterious sealed box clutched in my hand, my sister's mocking laughter still ringing in my ears like bitter chimes. The encroaching shadows of my family's expectations and desires seemed to lengthen even as a tiny, unfamiliar spark of something, ownership possibility, began to glow within me. The keys to Grandpa Alistair's house felt cool in my palm, a tangible link to a man who'd seen me, truly seen me. That mysterious carved wooden box, heavy with unspoken stories, sat on my dresser at Northwood University, a silent promise, or perhaps a warning. Weeks later, back home for a weekend, I'd been artfully guilted into attending. The encroaching shadows of my family's expectations began to lengthen, threatening to swallow that tiny, fragile spark of ownership the inheritance had ignited. My silence, it turned out, was mistaken for consent. They moved into my house, my inheritance, as casually as one might borrow a cup of sugar, never asking, only assuming. Then they asked for $3,000 for a family vacation I'd never actually take. It started as these things often did over dinner. The good china was out. A sure sign Serafina had an announcement. Swirling her wine with an air of immense self-importance, she waited until dessert. Now that we're focused on expanding the cafe, she began, her voice smooth as silk. It would make perfect sense for Marcus and me to move into Grandpa's old place in Willow Creek. Save on rent, you know? Before I could even form a word, Mother Eleanor chimed in, her eyes gleaming. Honey, it's perfect. You're away at Northwood most of the year, and Serafina and Marcus could really use the space and look after it for you. Look after my house. Father Richard nodded sagely from the head of the table. They're responsible. They'll take good care of it. Serafina then delivered the masterstroke, setting her glass down with theatrical care. And of course, Alara, she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, were family. You're not seriously thinking of charging us rent, are you? The room erupted in what they probably considered good-natured laughter. I didn't laugh. Stunned into silence, the familiar vice of family pressure tightened around my chest. What could I say? Any protest would be painted as selfish, ungrateful. So I conceded, or rather my silence was taken as such, and I threw myself into my two jobs: barista at the Daily Grind from dawn, then shelving books at the Northwood Library until midnight, with a desperate, almost frantic energy. Every penny saved was a step closer to the Azure Isle, to that sun-drenched family vacation I so desperately craved. A chance perhaps to finally belong, to be seen as more than just an afterthought. In early November, Serafina's text pinged. Azure Isle bookings are being finalized. Need your $3,000 share today to lock everything in. My heart hammered. I wired every last cent. I had a surge of nervous excitement washing over me. It felt worth it. I even allowed myself to buy a simple navy swimsuit on sale and borrowed my roommate Chloe's good suitcase, the one with wheels that actually worked. Fast forward to December 23rd. The hushed house, the four new suitcases lined up like soldiers in the hall. My arrival played out just as it had in that first chilling premonition. Dinner that night was a quiet, tense affair. Serafina and Marcus arrived late, their coats smelling faintly of travel brochures and fake tans. Then Serafina cleared her throat, the sound unnaturally loud in the strained silence. Alara, we need to talk. My stomach plummeted. She explained with a carefully crafted expression of concern that the cafe wasn't doing well. Margins are tighter than we expected. She sighed, so after talking it over, we all agreed. It's probably best you sit this one out. My fork froze midair, a piece of roast chicken suspended. But, I paid. I managed my voice, barely a whisper. Serafina's smile was the same one she'd given me when I'd lost the ninth grade class president election to her. Patronizing, dismissive. Yes, darling, and that really helped cover deposits. Thank you, she purred. Plus, think of it this way, you'll have the house all to yourself. Some quiet time to catch up on reading. Mother Eleanor reached across the table and patted my arm, her touch surprisingly cold. Family means being flexible. Alara, she said softly, as if bestowing a great wisdom. It's for the best, truly. Flexible. It's funny how family and flexibility always seem to bend in only one direction. Mine. The words echoed mockingly in my mind, as I later watched Serafina humming contentedly head upstairs to pack for the luxurious trip to Azure Isle, the trip my sweat and sacrifice had funded. A cold, unfamiliar fury began to solidify in my heart, layer by painful layer. This time, something felt different. This time, the price of belonging felt far too high. Christmas morning dawned with a deceptive, brittle calm. I played my part with an Oscar-worthy performance, a polite, almost serene smile fixed on my face as I waved them off to their luxurious getaway, the glossy brochures for Azure Isle practically vibrating with anticipation in Serafina's designer tote. You've got the keys to Willow Creek, right? Alara, Mother Eleanor called out already, halfway into the gleaming black SUV. Water the plants, dear, and check the mail. Father Richard, ever practical, added from the driver's seat. And turn off the porch lights before bed. Serafina, never one to miss an opportunity for a parting shot, leaned out of her window, sunglasses perched on her perfectly coiffed hair. We'll send photos from Azure Isle, don't feel left out. Her tinkling laugh, sharp as shattered glass, echoed as they drove away. I smiled. I waved. I watched until their taillights disappeared around the bend. They never saw the locksmith's van I'd scheduled for that exact moment. The instant their SUVs were out of sight, a switch flipped within me. The cold fury from the night before had chilled into something harder, sharper, and icy resolve. I didn't go back into my parents' house. Instead, I drove straight to Willow Creek, to my house. Grandpa Alistair's house. The air inside, though warmed by the winter sun, felt wrong, violated. Serafina and Marcus had made themselves thoroughly at home. Her designer coats choked Grandpa's old cedar closet. Marcus's expensive shaving kit littered the bathroom sink. And there on the small table where Grandpa Alistair's worn chessboard used to sit was their ostentatious wedding photograph, Serafina beaming, Marcus smirking. It was a desecration. A wave of steely determination washed over me. No tears, no tantrums. Just a quiet surgical precision. I started in the bedroom methodically packing their clothes, shoes, and ridiculously overpriced skincare into the moving boxes I'd brought. Next, the kitchen. Their espresso machine imported olive oils, a set of cloying his and hers engagement mugs. I didn't throw anything. I didn't break a single glass. I simply removed them one by one like someone politely but firmly uninviting guests who had long overstayed their welcome. In Grandpa Alistair's study, amidst the comforting scent of old paper and lingering pipe tobacco, my eyes fell upon the antique wooden box he'd bequeathed me. The yellowed note was still tied to its clasp. My dearest Alara, open this only when you feel the path is completely obscured or wonderfully clear. Taking a deep breath, I knew the path had never been clearer. My fingers fumbled slightly as I unfastened the twine. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay not jewelry or stacks of cash, but a single ancient-looking iron key and a thick folded parchment tied with a faded blue ribbon. It was a deed. My breath hitched. Grandpa Alistair, decades ago, with quiet foresight, had purchased the seemingly worthless overgrown plot of land adjacent to his property. Land that I vaguely recalled hearing, hushed excited whispers about amongst my parents and Serafina, had recently been rezoned for a luxury eco-resort development, making it astonishingly valuable. And this deed, this land was solely, unequivocally, in my name, Alara Vance. A quiet gasp escaped me. Grandpa, he'd known. The doorbell rang. The moving company paid triple for a Christmas Day job arrived with practiced efficiency. No questions asked, they cleared every box, every trace of Serafina and Marcus from my house. Last stop, the locksmith. He was an older man, his hair salt and pepper, his eyes kind, much like Grandpa Alistair's. He took in the empty rooms, the lingering scent of cleaning supplies. Rough Christmas, he asked gently, his voice soft. I offered him a genuine smile, the first one that had reached my eyes in what felt like years. Just long overdue, I replied. He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his gaze, and set to work replacing every lock, every tumbler, every compromised entry point. When he finished, he handed me a set of new gleaming keys. The house was silent, truly silent, settling around me under only my weight. With the astonishing knowledge of the land deed, Grandpa's final strategic gift, settling in my heart, I sat in his old armchair. The house was finally truly mine. Then my phone, previously dormant on the coffee table, began to buzz. And buzz and buzz. The first message, a confused query from Serafina, was just the prelude. Then 5 more, a rapid staccato. Then 10. By noon, my phone sitting on Grandpa Alistair's worn side table was a frantic, vibrating testament to my family's dawning panicked realization from their sun-drenched paradise on Azure Isle. It buzzed and shrieked like an angry insect trapped under glass. 83 missed calls. When I finally answered late that evening, my mother's shriek was entirely predictable. My calm, however, was not. Let me finish a sentence, I said, my voice even and clear-cutting through her tirade. For the first time in my life, they were forced to listen. The texts had been a masterclass in entitled Fury. Mother Eleanor, Alara, what is going on? Everything's gone. Please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding. You've gone too far. Serafina naturally was more direct. Are you serious? You had no right. What the hell did you do with our stuff? Marcus chimed in with a pathetic bluster. The locks won't turn. Did you change them? You can't just evict family. Even Father Richard had managed a sputtering text. This is an outrage, an absolute outrage. I'd watched the messages pile up, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. Their panic felt distant, like a storm raging on a far-off shore. When I picked up Mother Eleanor's 83rd call, her voice was a raw shriek. Alara Vance, what is wrong with you? Father's angry shouts rumbled indistinctly in the background, a furious counterpoint to her hysteria. I sat cross-legged in Grandpa Alistair's armchair, the ornate brass compass, and the ancient iron key from the mysterious box resting on the table beside me, silent witnesses. Mother, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. Let me talk. Just this once. Please let me actually finish a sentence. A stunned silence met my request. Perhaps it was the novelty of it. You took my money, I stated simply clearly. $3,000. Money I earned scrubbing floors at the Daily Grind and shelving books until midnight at the Northwood Library. Money you used to buy cocktails and sunshine on Azure Isle. A trip you then uninvited me from. Another pause, letting the words sink in. You let Serafina and Marcus live in my house rent-free without so much as a polite inquiry. For years, you've all made decisions about my life like I wasn't even in the room, like I never have been, just an afterthought. I took a breath picturing the deed, the undeniable truth of Grandpa's gift. And you weren't just after a free place to live, were you? Serafina, I could almost hear her sharp intake of breath across the thousands of miles. That land, Grandpa's other gift, the one adjacent to the house, the one you probably sniffed out when you were researching Willow Creek's new resort development plans. That's mine too. The silence on their end was now thick, heavy. You always preached that family means sacrifice, Mother. I continued, my voice quiet but firm. But somehow I was the only one ever asked to give anything up. Well, no more. They can stay with you or they can figure things out like the adults they claim to be. But this house and this land, these were Grandpa Alistair's gifts to me. And for the first time in my life, I'm keeping what's mine. The silence that followed was the truest, most profound thing we'd ever shared. Finally, Father Richard's voice, flat and cold, devoid of its usual bluster, cut through the quiet. I hope you're proud of yourself, Alara. My gaze drifted to the small framed photo on the mantel, me and Grandpa Alistair on the lake. Our fishing lines hopelessly tangled, both of us roaring with laughter. On the back in his familiar spidery handwriting were the words, "To Alara, the quiet ones always come back stronger." I think someone would be, I replied softly. Then I pressed end call and turned off my phone. A profound quiet settled not just in the room, but deep within my soul. The floorboards of Grandpa's house creaked softly, a familiar, comforting sound. The battle I sensed was over, but the journey of building my own life on my own terms was just beginning. A year can change everything, or for some, astonishingly little. For my family, it seemed that not much had pierced their well-fortified bubble of self-absorption. For me, that year was a quiet renaissance. A year later, the silence in Grandpa Alistair's house in Willow Creek isn't empty. It's resonant, filled with the quiet hum of my own, choosing the gentle presence of the kind retired teacher and her husband, who now call it home. They send me postcards, sometimes updates about their garden or the elk they spotted in the meadow, the house managed by a local property agent, and the income from leasing that surprisingly valuable adjacent land to a responsible eco-lodge developer entirely on my terms, now cover all taxes and insurance. More than that, they're building a savings account, a foundation of independence. It's something no one ever explicitly taught me, but I suspect Grandpa Alistair hoped I'd learn. I graduated this past May from Northwood University, my degree clutched in my hand like a hard-won trophy. Serafina's trendy cafe venture I heard through the grapevine collapsed about 6 months ago. She blamed the economy, the location, difficult suppliers. Everyone but herself. Last I knew, she and Marcus had moved back in with Mother Eleanor and Father Richard, occupying the guest room that used to be mine. There were a couple of hesitant phone calls which I didn't answer. Mother Eleanor sent a long saccharine email about rebuilding bridges, conveniently omitting any mention of the original damage. Father Richard even forwarded a generic meme about the importance of forgiveness. And Serafina She posted a typically passive-aggressive photo on social media, artfully posed with a caption, "Some people just don't understand what family truly means." I didn't reply. I don't need to explain myself, not anymore. Sometimes in the quiet of my own small apartment, I think about Grandpa Alistair, how he never called me, less than never defined me by my sister's shadow, just called me Alara. I realize now with a clarity that's almost breathtaking that I didn't need their permission to reclaim my space. I didn't need their apology to reclaim my voice, and I certainly absolutely do not need their conditional love to know my own worth. Above my desk, Grandpa's fishing photo and the ornate brass compass hold places of honor. On the back of the photo beneath his strong, familiar script, I've added my own small note. Still here. Still finding my north. Still mine. What I did wasn't about revenge, it was about reclamation, about finally choosing my own direction. If silence was once the only way you felt heard, know this: your true voice is not lost merely waiting. You hold the key, you just need to find the courage to unlock it.